I'm Nikhil Marar. I'm the manager of business analytics and strategy at the Los Angeles Lakers. I'll give you a little bit of background about myself, kind of before this program, why I chose this program, and then what I did after graduating. So I'm from Nashville, Tennessee. I attended the University of Tennessee, and I studied business analytics there. For me personally, I didn't know what I wanted to do after graduating undergrad, just like majority of students. But I was just trying to think, like, personally for me, everyone wants to work at the big top companies, doing tech, and that really wasn't something I wanted to do. So I tried to look for sports programs out there that were closer to home, and I ended up finding this program online. I want to say I did a campus visit, and Elizabeth might have walked me through campus in 2019, so it's about 5 years ago now. Fell in love with the city. A lot of sports here. I've never really lived in a downtown before, so fell in love with it immediately. Chose this program, started right after undergrad, doing the data science and sports analytics program. I met Dr. Pierce about 2 months in and just asked how I can be involved, right? Is there any projects you have for me? Is there any volunteering experiences? And he said, definitely. So started working with Dr. Pierce on doing some projects of just pulling data online. So I'm sure majority of you know what Teamwork Online is. So what we did was we scraped all of the jobs of Teamwork Online and built Tableau visualizations just out there for the community, just letting people know these jobs exist, right? And me personally working on that project, looking at the back end, I just started understanding that, wow, like not only is there jobs on the sports side of the teams and leagues, but with my background in undergrad on the business side, I decided kind of to pursue that area. So the biggest part that Dr. Pierce and other students that I talked to were doing was internships. And for me in undergrad, that really wasn't what I focused on. So I never had an internship in undergrad. So I kind of felt like people had starts above me, but just got to put your head down and work. So I ended up finding an internship halfway through the program at a MLS team called Nashville SC. So I ended up doing that remotely, and I guess I should have an asterisk on my time here because COVID started halfway through. So half my classes were in person, the other half were remote, literally directly in the middle of my program of March. It was that time. So luckily for me, it kind of worked out because I could stay here in Indianapolis where all the students were, where Dr. Pierce was at, but I also could intern in Nashville. Part of that job, what helped me learn was they were a brand new team, right? So everyone that I worked with didn't really know what they were doing. They were just kind of building the team from the ground up. So for myself being an intern, I was just kind of soaking it all in. I was being a sponge of, hey, this is how you do things, right? This is how you understand what a business is like. These are the skills that you need. And that really just opened up my eyes of like, okay, well, like this is definitely can be a possibility, like interning. So did that all the way up to graduation, finished the school in a year and a half. So I was a full-time student, also working part-time remotely. Unfortunately, my internship did not lead into a full-time job. Being a brand new team means there's no revenue coming in during COVID, right? No fans were coming to games. But I got lucky enough and, worked hard and had my master's degree where I ended up getting a job at another MLS team in Chicago. So, not too far from home. So I ended up moving to Chicago and pursuing just a data analyst entry-level job, right? It was honestly perfect for me because it was just more of what I did as an intern, but doing it more full-time and then kind of understanding how to run a business for a soccer team. So my job over there was more focusing on understanding all of the data coming through the team. So some data sources that I worked with was a bunch of ticketing data. So imagine you go on Ticketmaster right now, you buy a ticket to the All-Star game, right? We get that data. And then when you go to the game, you scan into the arena, right? We also get that data. So now we know your first name, your last name, your email, your phone number. So part of my job was giving that data out to our sales team and saying, hey, this person came to our game. Let's give them a phone call. Not only just trying to sell them and get their money, but hey, how was your experience, right? Can we send you a survey and understand how you felt about this game? And then if you think about it, we know how Nikhil felt about it, but then you look at it at aggregate level and say the average fan that came to this one event felt this way. That data really helped us understand like what we are doing right or wrong, but then not only that, but understand who our fan base was. So part of the thing about soccer and MLS in the United States is it's a growing sport, right? It's about 20 years, 25 years in, and part of my job was like I want to see this stadium sold out. So part of my job was making sure that we were creating leads through data, right? You're coming to our game. Are you an early fan? Do you arrive later, right? So looking at all of that was what my focus was, and then we built that all into our CRM system, which manages all of our customer data. That was my first time working with a CRM system, and now I understand that they don't teach that sometimes in classes, but the biggest thing is getting an internship, right? Because I would have never knew what a CRM system was, how to collect data, how to ingest it into a system, and then how to build dashboards and analysis on that. So I did that for 2 seasons at the Chicago Fire, and part of me was, personally for me, my favorite sport was basketball, and I knew I always wanted to work in basketball, but just some advice I would always give is don't always look for a job because of the logo or that's your favorite team. Always look at it as the people you're working with and understand this is the knowledge you're trying to gain. Because you could go work for your favorite team, and working in sports, I'm going to go ahead and give you a heads up, it's not really a 40-hour week. During the season, you might be working 50, 60 hours. The off season's a bit less. So the biggest thing for me is you're working with the same people, 50 hours a week, right? So you better like the people you work with and not the logo you're working for, right? So the biggest part of me was let me get all my experience, let me gain the knowledge of working for an organization, then let me go try to follow my dreams and pursue working for a basketball team. So at this point, I had an undergrad degree, I had a grad degree, and I had 3 seasons of sports under me. 1 is an intern and 2 is a full-time. So part of me was let me just kind of test out there and see, what, jobs are available, whether it's college basketball or NBA. So a big thing for me was networking. So I actually met the people at the Lakers at a conference in San Francisco that I was at. And just talking about my job, like I'm talking to you all about, they were like, yeah, we're actually looking for someone that has your skill set and your experience level, right? So they sent me the link to their job application, and I applied and went through that process and ended up starting at the Lakers about 1.5 years ago. So my job there is I'm kind of more on the management side, so I manage a small team that works on stuff that I did. So if you think about it, if you're gonna manage a team now, you should know how to do their job already, so then you can teach them and elevate their job. So I right now manage a CRM analyst who handles all of our customer data at the organization. Then I also manage an intern who kind of just helps clean data, understand data structures, and then helps a little bit on the analysis side. So building dashboards and then kind of understanding who our customer who buys our tickets to the games are. And then a little bit of stuff that I'm actually learning currently is partnership side, right? So you see all these logos when you go to a sports game. If you go to Lucas Oil or you go to Gamebridge Fieldhouse, you'll see all these logos all around, right? Those was what we call assets, and those companies pay a certain amount of money to have their logos up there. So part of my job right now is understanding why they should pay X amount of money to have their logo up, right? So some things that we look at is TV visibility, right? How many people on TV can see this logo? How many people at the arena are coming to our games and seeing what those logos are? And then we also reach out to our partners and say, hey, are you guys seeing uptick on your website during game times or maybe after the game, right? And collecting that data, and then we build a story around it of hey, Nike is doing very good as a partner because this many people are looking at the logo and then also buying products in the LA market, during these game times, right? Then you can kind of build a story around using data of how a partnership can be done. So I know it's a little bit of a lot, but that's kind of how I started, understanding how working with data was, and then taking that to a next level, and then trying to help build out customer profiles at the organization. But yeah, that's kind of what I do right now. Should we do questions and answers right now or at the end? Send it over the shot. All right, cool.
So a lot of what I feel I've heard is going to be similar with all of us. A lot of the things that Nikhil spoke about felt so relatable in my own journey, and so bear with us because we all have the same backgrounds and experiences, kind of, but in a lot of ways there's a lot of differences as well, I'm sure. So I'll follow the same approach with just my whole background and my journey so far. I'm from Mumbai, India, and I got my undergraduate degree in business administration. And again, like Nikhil, did not know exactly what it was that I wanted to do, but I was very sure from a very young age that I wanted to work in sports. So it was that, for me, navigation about what in sports. And as an international student coming to the United States, I felt like analytics was, from what I had researched about, a growing space. So I felt like that would be a good skill set for me to acquire. And move to another country, and so that's the kind of way I moved to IUPUI. I had some friends and family in the city who had exposed me to the culture of sports in Indy, which I really liked, and that was one of the reasons I chose to come to IUPUI. And growing from there, uh, I realized that I had to like adapt and learn a lot. So that's a skill set I feel that goes on even after school. Like you have to keep adapting and learning about things that are happening in the industry. So instantly, as I came into this culture, there were a lot of differences, but I had to figure out what I didn't know and so what I needed to learn. And that was my approach towards grad school, and just being like a sponge, like everyone has mentioned, picking up skills from people and interacting with people and learning more about what they know and the best way to do things. So that became something that I started focusing on. And another thing that's very common in the sports industry, especially, is like Nikhil mentioned earlier, networks. And it's a lot about what you know, but who you know. So having people who have some experiences that you can pick off, and just someone who can refer you to different positions. So for me, that was like within the university, I knew of Dr. Pierce, and I had connected with Nikhil before I joined grad school. So I was in SII was doing. So just connecting with Dr. Pierce helped me get a few more opportunities where I could work with him on a lot of projects that he had. And that helped me learn more about what it was that I was good at in the data space, and the kind of stuff that I wanted to be doing as well. So experience of working with clients and working on projects that you see have an impact in the real world was very important to me, as I felt like this line of work made more sense when I could see how the work I was doing was converting into actionable insights for businesses to make decisions. And I felt like that was the space that I wanted to focus more on. So just growing into that helped me get an idea of stuff I could do, like for internships, what kind of positions I was looking for, again, similar roles where I could contribute in a actionable way to the organization I was working with. And since then, I worked with the final year of the final semester of my program. The way I was able to design it was, I feel, very helpful in what helped me get a job, because I did a lot of my theoretical courses in the first 2 semesters, and then an internship and 2 consulting projects in the last semester. So around the time when I was applying for a lot of positions, I already had a body of work that I was working on currently to show that these are the skills that I have, and these are the ways that I've sort of approached problems. It's not exactly a lot of times during interviews also, I learned that people want to know how you approach things, just like from a thought process, and what your approach to any problem is. So just having that experience also really makes a difference when you go into those conversations for interviews, and for just when you're networking and talking to people. They see how you think, and that was something I learned through these processes. And it's something I'm noticing in my line of work now as well. So I did a lot of networking when I was in Indy and worked on different projects here. But what ended up actually leading to my job was a random teamwork link that I saw, put in my application, got a call for an interview, and it just went from there. So for all the networking that I did, which was really important. Yeah, my point being, you don't know where an opportunity comes out from, and so all you should be focusing on is like doing everything that you know you can do, and like focusing on the controllables. And I feel like either way, if you've done the work, it in some way or another things pan out. That's been my outlook towards stuff like this as well, because it is a very competitive industry. As we all know, everyone wants to work in sports, and there are only a handful of roles that are available. So I feel very grateful to have had this opportunity that I just applied online for a cold application where I didn't know anybody who could refer me to a position, or I didn't really know anyone within the organization. But I feel like it was a good fit again because of all my other experiences. I knew for a fact that this was a good fit for what I wanted to do and what the employer was looking for in that role. So again, all those experiences have led to a certain position, and I feel like it's important as a student to be putting yourself in those positions where you get all those experiences. And another thing that I feel I've learned in 7 months now, it has been since I've graduated, so not a long time, but we will continue to work with people, and we have always worked with people. So one of the most important skills to learn is interpersonal skills and how you work with people, and that is common to any line of work, any organization you work at any level. There are going to be people involved. So the best way to work in teams and to make an impact at any organization is actually to know how to work with people, and not a lot of people have those skills. I feel like they aren't taught at school either as much, but those are the things that are really important for I think everyone who works in any capacity at any organization. So we should definitely focus and just be more cognizant about how we interact with people, and what is the what can someone else learn from me by just being who I am. So I feel like all of those skills really matter, and when you work with people, you never know who can help you in what way at any point in your life. So just being genuine and authentic towards creating those relationships and making sure that if there is, like, I for a fact know that Dr. Pierce needed some work to be done, I was available to get it done, and that led to him sort of having that trust with me to keep giving me a few more things to keep trying, and that build a relationship with us that I feel like is something has that shaped my equation in my head of what my relationships with people I work with in the industry should be like. So again, recreating that experience for other people is the way we build forward, and that's why it's great to come back to school, do an event like this, and meet all of you guys. And I haven't interacted with a lot of y'all either, but it's a good way to know like all of our stories. And yeah, that's I think my bit.
So my name's Andrew Marion. I work for Elevate. So my story is a little bit different than everybody else. It's still generally the same. But so Elevate's a sports consulting firm, and we do consulting outside of that now too, but it's so much different than a team side. Let me rewind a little bit. So I went to Purdue University, and I did stats and math there, and I got into it because of Moneyball, probably like some of you, but the team side is so hard to get into. Working with the coaches, really, really hard. So what else can you do? There's the business side, there's consulting side, there's a wide world out there with technology even that you can get into and get your foot in the door, because that's the biggest thing. Just get your foot in the door. It's really hard to do. So in my eyes, there's two ways to really do it. One is a portfolio, and one of it is just the power of the word yes. That can open so many doors. So with a portfolio, everybody wants to see what you can do in data analytics. You're going to see how you can code, how you build a dashboard, all these different things. Some really helped me was YouTube. There's a guy called Alex Analyst. Look him up. He's a great guy. You can even message him on LinkedIn. He replies pretty often. But he has a ton of videos that help you build out a portfolio website, do a few different analytics projects with coding, look up a video how to build a Tableau dashboard and build that out. It's all just different things to show that you're capable of doing the work. Even if it's not at the highest level, it's showing that you're willing to learn these skills and you're willing to put yourself out there and show that you're willing to try this. That's super helpful. That's something you can put on the resume. Put that link at the top of your resume. They'll look at it. They for sure will. If they're looking at you for an internship or a job, they'll look at that portfolio. And then the other side, the power of the word yes. For me, that came in so many different things. It came in whenever I was coming out of undergrad. It was COVID time. There wasn't a lot of jobs out there. So I said yes to an internship in marketing, and I would have never said yes to that prior to COVID probably. It was so different. I travel around Indiana going to different county fairs or different minor league sporting events doing marketing. And that opened up a door for me to go work at Indy 11. And then at Indy 11, I started out with community relations. Also didn't think I was going to say yes to that. But then I went there, I started saying yes to things like game day operations, they needed help. The ticket ops needed help. And then that worked my way up to do some data analysis for them and start working in a few different areas, helping the ticket department understand who their fans are. Helped out game day operations to understand what's going on in the stadium, who's showing up to the games, all of that sort of stuff. I was able to do just because the word yes. And then that eventually led to Dr. Pierce had us work with the college football playoffs here in Indy, and we worked with Rockport Analytics doing a survey for them and going out and collecting it. And by just saying yes to that, I was able to talk to them, and they were able to send the data over to us, and I was able to build a Tableau dashboard. And that eventually led to Elevate and an internship with them because they saw that dashboard, like, that's awesome, you know how to do Tableau. We're looking for somebody to do that. And so I came in, helped them out with a ton of different data analysis, and then through that internship, we started our BI team. And I said yes to something before then that led me to that, and now I'm in their BI team doing all sorts of projects. And the thing about Elevate is I love Elevate. It's a great place to work. We work with so many different teams in the U.S., across the world at this point, where I see anywhere from 3 to 5 teams a week. It's something different that consulting has that working with a team just doesn't have. I learn a ton every day because I'll be working with Team A in college and then Team B in the pros an hour later. And on 2 different things. One side can be a feasibility study for a stadium, telling them, hey, this is how you should renovate your stadium. And then on the other side, we're looking at the tickets or their CRM and say, hey, this is who your fans are, and these are the fans coming to your game. And understanding that fan base, doing a survey for them, all the different aspects a team would need that they just don't have time for. And that's stuff that we can do. And now I know teams across the world right now. I know their data team. I met some of their CEOs, their presidents, all because of Elevate and the sports consulting that I just said yes to. I didn't know about it before, but by saying yes, I was there. And now it's the best thing that's happened to me.
All right. So my name is Kiran Patel, and I'm currently working as a partnership data manager for the Detroit Pistons. I also went to Purdue. I graduated in 2022 studying applied stats and history. But before, when I actually applied to Purdue, I wanted to be an actuary. I don't know how many of you know about actuarial science, but it's a lot of analyzing risk in insurance, and I realized that I love numbers, but they have to mean something to me. I don't care about insurance. So I kept asking myself the question, like, what means something to me? And every single time I would think about that, sports was always on the top of my list. And I've never been good at playing sports, but I've always loved watching it. And so I knew at that point I wanted to be involved in some way, shape, or form. So at Purdue, I kind of just did everything that I possibly could to get involved. And the first thing that I did actually was I saw Indy 11, we have like very similar backgrounds. Indy 11 had a bunch of internships available, but there was no analytics internship. And so what I did was I just reached out to the HR manager and said, hey, here's my resume. Are you willing to hire an analytics intern? What can we do about that? And she sent me to the marketing person. They didn't have an analytics team, but they had a few people that were interested in analytics. And so through that, I kind of worked under the marketing and partnership people within the internship because they said yes. So technically I was an analytics intern, but it was kind of like a marketing partnership internship. But either way, said yes, had an analytics internship on my resume. From there, I also decided to intern for the USL front office as a diversity and inclusion intern. And that was more so because I wanted to see how working for a front office of sports was like. Also, I have a passion for DE&I, but it was a really big learning lesson of, how do different teams work together? How does this kind of look from an HR perspective? It was just nice to get insight into that. And then lastly, at Purdue, I was involved in the data mine, which was a really cool opportunity where you were actually able to work with companies as students. And so the company that I worked with was Purdue Athletics. And so I did a lot of ticketing analytics, revenue dashboarding, sales dashboarding, all of that kind of stuff. And May of 2021, end of 2021, I was applying for grad school and decided that I wanted to find something for me to have in between graduating from my undergrad and starting grad school. And so I was rapid fire applying to literally everything that I could find, and ended up getting an internship as a data analyst with the Portland Timbers and Thorns, which is the NWSL and MLS team in Portland, Oregon. And then literally in April of 2022, so a month before I graduated, my former boss messaged me and said, hey, we have an opening on our team. Would you be willing to interview? And at that time, I was like, I don't know if I want to work full-time while doing my master's, but let me just interview because I haven't had third and fourth round interview experience. So I interviewed, and I remember I actually called Nikhil and was like, what do I do? Do I take this job? Like, I don't know what to do. Like, how hard was the master's? Like, am I gonna be able to balance everything? And I got the job, literally started 2 weeks after college, as a CRM analyst at Portland. And I always used to ask my boss, I was like, why did you hire me? Like, I was so fresh out of college. I didn't really have too much analytics experience. And he said two things. He said, you were teachable. I could tell you were teachable in the interviews. And two, the reference I got from your boss at Indy 11 was a really, really good reference. And I say that not to pat myself on the back, but to say, don't be afraid to reach out to people. Because if it wasn't for me reaching out about the analytics internship, I wouldn't have gotten that position, and I probably wouldn't have gotten the job with the Portland Timbers and Thorns. And so that decision of me reaching out that day was really, really big in the trajectory of how my career has panned out. So don't be afraid of just asking. The worst thing that people can say is no. So at Portland, I started off as a CRM analyst, kind of what Nikhil was talking about at the beginning, just tracking a lot of data so we can see who our fans were. And this was really interesting to do there because I was actually working for two different teams. I was working for the women's team and the men's team. And towards the end of my time there, the women's team was actually being sold. So it was really needed that we were able to, or it was really important that we were able to track the difference between the fan base between the men and the women's team because of sponsorship reasons, ticketing reasons, all of that kind of stuff. It was cool to see all of that CRM work come into play towards the end. And I also did a lot of dashboarding. I was in the ticketing space. I learned there that not a lot of people understand data. And Maggie and I have talked about this. It's just like you have to make the data look pretty. You have to make it easily ingestible for everyone, not just people who care about data. And so really in that job, I really learned that I loved storytelling. I loved being able to tell a story through the data. And one thing that I would urge you guys to do while you're here is in any class that you take here, you have to do a project pretty much. Like the class culminates with a project. And one thing that I would suggest is don't always pick a sports project. And maybe this is like not advice that you've ever heard before, but I think it's really important. Maggie and I did a project on movies. I don't care about movies, but I think it was cool that we were able to tell a story about a topic that we don't necessarily care about. If you learn that skill in school with professors that are so willing to help you, then it's going to be amazing when you transition back into sports and you actually care about the topic that you're telling the story about. It's going to be so much easier for you to actually be successful in your job. And I think that's a really big talking point that you could talk about during interviews too, is I was able to do a project about movies and all of these different things, and these weren't topics that I necessarily cared about, but I was able to successfully tell a story. So take advantage of that while you're here. But with that storytelling, it's kind of what led me to my job now, is the partnership analytics space is not really populated within sports right now. It's still kind of an up-and-coming industry. So the data with partnership analytics is very sparse, like there's not a lot of it. And so I knew that I would really be able to build out a story within the partnerships team. I would be able to collect the data, present the data, hopefully share the data with the sales team and make a pitch. For example, the Pacers with their Spoke Note QR code on their jersey. Something that I would do in my role is say, hey, the media value of Spoke Note is $3 million because there was approximately X amount of people that saw it. The logo size was this big, and that equivalates to $3 million. And so being able to come up with those numbers and report it is really helpful from a sales perspective, because you're able to say, your company will grow this amount because of the amount of impressions and media value you're going to get by being a sponsor for the Detroit Pistons. So yeah, that's a little bit of what I do, and I think we're going to now open it to questions, if anyone has any.
Carlos, what are you thinking?
Well, I'll write for that too. As someone who's like currently studying marketing, and I know there's a lot of fields in marketing, and I realized I went from was data analytics, and it kind of like caught my attention. I was wondering, like, at what time did you guys like thought like about getting into data analytics, and like when did you decide that you were gonna make that action to like start pursuing that? Anybody?
I'm not a good person to answer this question because I always knew. I was always math-minded. I always knew I wanted to do analytics. So you were business, so I know maybe you might have a better.
Yeah, so I guess for me it was when I saw like what jobs were out there and understanding that like there's people out there doing something on the back end that we don't realize. Like I said, when you go to a game, you're just buying a ticket and showing up, right? Like you don't understand that there's people in the back end that have all of your data that are trying to understand who you are and why you're here. So when I think it was just more of like reading job descriptions that were out there and understanding like, okay, this is a possibility. And like, I would look at the job description and be like, okay, I don't know this, cross it out. I know this, check mark it. And then whatever I didn't know, YouTube is very helpful. I would go on YouTube and just kind of understand like, okay, like how do you build a regression model, right? Like YouTube is great, free, going out there and then kind of just understanding like, okay, like these jobs are out there just based off like job descriptions I would read. That's kind of how I got into it.
I will say on the marketing side too, there are a lot of marketing analytics roles. My counterpart with the Portland Timbers and Thorns, her role was digital marketing analyst. So she worked a lot in like email strategy. When you get an email from a team, it might seem like there's nothing that went into it, but there's a lot of strategy behind it. So a lot of numbers you have to collect, all of that stuff that goes into that. So if you love marketing but you love data, there's definitely a role there for you as well.
I think just to add on to what you said, the key word that really clicked for me was strategy. Like we do go into business degrees and marketing. I think the common aspect with that is just figuring out what exactly it is that we want to do. And so when I started thinking of data, I started thinking about why I want to get into data, and the real reason is making decisions. And so making better informed decisions was the key behind the data approach for me. So even in my current role now, I'm the manager of pricing analytics. So I'm thinking about why I'm making those decisions and recommending certain prices for certain sections and certain rows, and what should we be doing. Like just that the click, if I were to mention it, would be that approach of thinking about strategy.
This is maybe a little less career focused and more personally focused, but how do you balance working in sports with being a fan of sports? Kind of that line between what your work is and what you're passionate about.
I think pretty much, I don't know about you guys, for me, my life is sports. So there is no line. My work is my life and my passions are my life. And so sports has always been that for me. So naturally for me to build a career in sports was a conscious decision, because I knew that there is not going to be a demarcation of where that. I feel like that's a great way for me to have work-life balance, where I feel like everything I do is also life, but I'm also enjoying it. I'm passionate about it, and that passion is something that I feel is important, if in particular in the sports industry, because there's just like it's a crucial element of knowing the fan. When you know yourself, like you are the fan, if that makes sense. Like you're trying to understand a whole market, but it really helps if you are a part of that market. So I guess, I don't know if that answers your question, but in a way I feel like that's my approach. Did you guys want to add something?
I think you nailed it.
Yeah, I think you know too. Yeah.
But the organization you work for,
Yeah.
are you a big fan of?
Not at all. So I so again, there's a lot of similarity. Like when Andrew said, say yes to everything, that was just my decision. I had one offer from a company in the sports industry that I didn't know a lot about, but it was a way to get my foot into the door. It was a way to learn about how the industry works, because I work in the ticketing industry. I look into the ticketing side, and that's pretty much similar across all sports and across all levels of the sport. So Ticketmaster is one of the biggest, is if not the biggest company. So we do similar things to other organizations in other sports, but it may not be my industry of choice. But again, I'm focusing my approach towards sport specific. So NASCAR has its own fans, its own sort of niches that are different from other sports, but in the end the skill set is transferable. And if for now this is a great position for me to learn, I am going to take all of it in, and I don't know if something else opens up, like Nikhil, for him it did, like for me also it might, because I'm the same way. Like I'm also a huge basketball fan. If I get an opportunity to work at an NBA team, I'm taking that. But right now this is what I have, so how can I make the most of this experience and learn from it, and sort of evolve to be in a better position if it were to open up.
I'll add a little bit to that. So like for me, I'm not working with a team every day, but still I'm in the marketplace for every single team that I'm working for. Like I may be working with a rival team. I'm actually working with one of my favorite teams' rivals right now. And so it's a really weird thing. But at the end of the day, it's still sports. And no matter what the data is, like if you understand the market that you're working in, it makes analyzing the data so much easier, because you can narrow down the field. Like with data, you can find 1,000,001 insights, but it could be only one insight that's really, really important. And understanding your market gets you to that point quicker.
Is there something, kind of looking back at your time here, that you wish you know earlier, or you kind of wish you knew something different?
Something I wish I knew earlier was Dr. Pierce, and all of the opportunities he gets for us, for sure. Because it's, like I said, the power of yes. And if I didn't say yes to the college football playoffs and doing the survey, I would have never met Rockburn.
Big thing that semester, yeah.
Yeah, it was a huge thing for us, and getting that data, I wouldn't be where I am today because I wouldn't have done that project. So Dr. Pierce, take advantage of him. And Dr. Sherman.
Reaching out before you ever even got to camp.
I did.
I did too.
Yeah, I was just eager to just like get started and like, first of all, move here. The second of all, like I wanted to set myself up where, I think the classes are 3 classes if you're a full-time student. So I knew I had some like time. Obviously, like me moving here, I didn't know anybody at all, knew 0 people. So I was trying to like figure out if I can make connections before even stepping foot on campus. I want to say Elizabeth probably sent me to Dr. Pierce. I emailed him and was like, hey, like, here's my skill set, like, fresh out of college, and give me anything you have. Like, one of our big projects, at least when I was here, was we went out to a couple Indiana football games in Bloomington. We took our iPads out there. So our goal was to understand, like, the fan base of Indiana football, right? So imagine having no data at all. And one of the things that he was like, you gotta go collect the data. You gotta go out there. So I think we woke up at like 6, 7 in the morning. We went out to IU tailgates. So you can just imagine what kind of fans are out there. Very friendly. And we took our iPads. We walked up and was like, hey, you want to take a 10-minute survey? Like, we're trying to collect data and understanding. So part of my goal was
I think it was for IU Sports.
It was IU Sports Corp.
Sponsor activation, sponsor recognition, and recall.
Exactly, yeah.
And that partner.
So pretty much like saying, like, you see these logos inside a stadium, like, how do you feel about them and stuff like that, right? So our goal was like going out there with iPads 8 in the morning at an IU tailgate. Obviously, we're there for work. So really friendly people. You go up there and just ask random fans, hey, can you fill out the survey on this iPad? We would collect all of that data, come back to, after we come back to campus, and we would just clean the data. Obviously, survey data, if anyone's worked with it, is very messy. Clean up all the data, build the dashboard out of it. So like part of that thing was like, we have this very pretty dashboard, and like a month ago, we had nothing but iPads in a field, right? Going out there collecting data. So I wouldn't do anything differently, I'm going to be honest with you, but I would definitely take advantage of your professors and Dr. Pierce and just run with it.
Like that summer consult, you got to do one with the Colts, right?
Yeah.
Like season ticket,
Mhm.
member retention.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, go ahead. Andrew, I can't remember if did you take that class?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, all right, so go ahead and talk about your like TESM 598 class or whatever.
Yeah, so before, when I knew I wanted to work in sports, Indianapolis Colts, dream organization. And so when I was enrolled in that class and Dr. Pierce was like, what's your dream project to work on? I said, Colts, season tickets, something like that. And I think the reason I said that is because, one, the Colts, but two, at Portland, that's exactly what I was doing. And so I thought it would be a really good thing to see what other teams looked like so that I could apply that back to Portland. And yeah, so I did that. I worked with them for a little bit longer than it was anticipated to be. But it all ended up being good. I was able to present in front of them, which was really cool because actually in 2020, I went to the Sloan Analytics Conference in Boston, and I got an internship with the Colts, and then of course the world shut down. So it was cool to see like that full 180 moment of like, I was so heartbroken, didn't have the internship, and now I'm able to present in front of them. So really, really cool experience, especially being able to do it for like my favorite team ever. So.
Yeah, so mine wasn't for a team. It's Upper Hand. It's a company down here, downtown Indy. Dr. Sherman connected me with them, and it was a really cool project. They have a ton of small businesses they work with that are sports-minded small businesses. And so I analyzed their entire portfolio, told them their best companies, the worst performing companies they work with, and why are they doing that? That was the biggest thing, was why are they at the bottom 10? And what are these key characteristics of the top these top companies have that you want these bottom ones to learn? So you can go to those bottom companies and say, hey, this is where you're kind of underperforming some of our other people we work with, and these are the things you can improve on. And so their sales team can go out there, or their customer service can go out there and even talk to them and really help their small businesses out.
Sean, your project was the Indians?
Yeah, my project was with the Indians. Again, in my last semester, I was also working on an internship and another research project that we had. So with the Indians, I was creating an attendance prediction model. We were looking at their season games and looking at the months and the number of games they would sell out in each month, and trying to identify factors that would help in predicting attendance, and eventually looking at sort of why they wanted to use that so that they could plan their staffing needs for each game. If they don't have a prediction for a sellout, not every game is going to sell out. So how could they adjust their staffing needs and operations, and how that would impact their cost? So again, it was a very very helpful way to learn about how companies use data and what they're trying to look for.
So I want to ask, like, for the partnership side of sports, like here, like partnership data is pretty new for the industry, and I'm just curious about, like, before we can also sell sponsorship without data, but now what are the difference that you think if we add data to sell sponsorship, what are the difference that make data so important? And the second question is it like for the team performance, will it affect like the data that you use to maybe sell tickets or sell sponsorship? Because I had a conversation because of Dr. Pierce's assignment to talk with ticket sales manager at the Detroit Pistons, and because this season Detroit Pistons didn't do really great, right? So, but pretty impressive information for me is they already break their ticket sales record for this year so far, by losing like 28 games streak. So, I'm just
special time to be in the organization, guys.
I'm just so curious about like how the team performance will affect like for you as like working in the team.
Yeah, so the first question, I think, so I'm also very new to the partnership space. So before I was in the ticketing space, and so I'm still also kind of learning, how the data plays a role. But I think it really just goes back to the storytelling. I think it goes to, if you're able to get in front of a room and you're able to pitch a deck that has numbers that say you got $1.1 million in media value from having the LED basket stanchion, having a pad on the basketball hoop. It's really cool to be able to go in with those numbers and say, during these games you got X amount of impressions. Like it's nice to have those as proof, because a lot of the times they'll ask like, why should we be a partner? You guys are losing, and you can say, well, regardless of the streak, we're still able to make all of this attention. And one really good example was Wingstop. So this past season, you know, Wingstop is our sponsor that you get free wings the day after a win. Well, we didn't win for so long. So the day that we broke the streak, Wingstop got so many impressions. You know, so many people commented on that post. So many people liked it. People were going to Wingstop. The amount of traction that Wingstop got by being a Detroit Pistons partner, even though we were losing, was incredible, right? So I think being able to show, hey, even though we were losing, you guys still got all of this stuff, all of this revenue, all of these impressions by just being a partner. So I think that's where the data comes in, is you're really, really able to tell a story, and you're able to back up the story with those numbers. And I think that's just data in general. But I think in such a space where, for the Pistons, where we really need partners, and we really need to show partners why they should be with the Pistons versus any other team, that data is really useful. And then second, for the, you know, the team morale, you know, how is it working in an organization that's not playing too well? It's honestly surprising in the fact that, you know, obviously we're impacted by it, but I think it speaks to our VPs of they're planning revenue out for the following seasons as if we're not going to win any games, right? They're not going to overestimate any sort of revenue or anything like that, because they want to make sure that we're preparing for the worst, right? Like, they're not going to do anything that's so out of proportion. But I will say it's just a testament to, like, you really have to love sports. You have to love sports itself, and you can't necessarily hope that your team is winning. That can't be something, you know, like Nikhil was saying with, like, the logo. Don't go chasing a logo, right? Like, I joined the Pistons after they were still the worst in the league. Like, that was not anything that made me say yes or no to them. It was just, I love sports and I want to learn about this partnership space, and it was my curiosity for them, not necessarily the win or losing streak that kind of impacted my decision. But I will say, when I was in Portland, the women's team won the championship when I was there, so I was hoping to bring the good luck, and I didn't. So
I'll add a little bit to that. So whenever you're looking at like teams and data, and especially around attendance, like, it's going to be affected if you're winning or losing, for sure. But there's so many other parts of the game day experience. Like, there's the atmosphere. There's how's your stadium look? Is it a fun stadium to come to? There's a ton of different things like teams can do to really elevate the experience. Sorry for the pun there. But there's a lot more that you can do. And that's where like some of the data comes in too. You get them through the lines faster, so they know whenever they come to a Pistons game maybe, that they know they're going to get their drink and be in their seat before they could in any other stadium. A lot of different things like that, like game day operations that we were talking about earlier, like all that's heavily affected by data.
I feel like in the data panel there has to be a question about AI. So where are you applying it, using it, from any game operations to sales process to, you know, anything else? Like, where are you using it or seeing it should be used where it's not?
I'll have to think about it a little bit.
Yeah.
do you want to go?
We are just getting into the AI space here at the Lakers. So part of things that I work on, so in our CRM system, we actually have an AI chatbot within our system. So if you go to a fan's CRM profile, you can ask the chatbot of, can you give me a summary of this fan? It'll say, this person has have a lifetime value of $5,000. They went to 3 games in a row. You know, they spend this much on merch and F&B, right? So if I'm a salesperson and I'm calling this person and I know that they have these 3 high-level data points, it's pretty quick, right? Like, this gives it to you in real time. So as a salesperson, I'm trying to get you know, them to utilize it a little bit more. You know, it's a little different, and it comes with trust, right? So that's one thing that we're doing, is summarizing fan profiles. And then another thing that I got one of our interns to do is, in our CRM system, we have, I'm going to give fake numbers, 1,000 organizations in our system for our partners to contact, right? Something that the league has is 100 industry types. So what we did was we fed like a ChatGPT 1,000 of our organizations. We also fed it the 100 league industry types, and we said, can you you know, match one industry partner with the with industry type, right? So for example, Coca-Cola would be a beverage, right? Nobody wanted to go there and type in 1,000 different ones, like going to the Coca-Cola profile, putting in beverage, going to Nike and putting sports apparel. No one wanted to do that, right? I wouldn't want anybody, you're not going to learn that way. So I came up with this idea of like, why don't you just feed it, the bot, both iterations, and then tell them to pick one, and then, you know, spot check and fact check all of that. So that's something that like streamlined a process like so fast, was just like matching up industry and industry types and then summarizing a fan profile through AI. You know, I would say it's very scratching the surface, and be careful what you put into those chatbots because that data is living somewhere. So obviously, like, I'm still learning about a lot of CCPA, which is like California laws on privacy for data. So we're very careful on like what we feed these bots, but at the same time, we're trying to like make other people's jobs more efficient at our organization from it.
So with us at Elevate, we have a huge different number of verticals that all do different things. One of them is like secondary market sales for teams. And that one uses AI a ton, especially around dynamic pricing. So it knows, hey, you're this far out from a game, we should go up, we should go down, all of this sort of stuff. And really helps those like decisions that can take quite a while, build a really extensive model, be a lot quicker. And so you can be a lot more effective and really maximize your revenue a lot better than you could without it. And then the other thing that we have been using it for was a lot of it is, some of it's around partnerships and understanding what's your fan base and what partner really aligns with it the best. And so it's going back to the industry they're in, what are the fans really liking, what's your demographic, and we can match that with a specific partner for a team to understand, hey, this is what fans really like, and this is why you should go that way. That takes a ton of data, and we're still trying to collect and finalize that sort of model.
Yeah, one thing too. So in the partnership space, you know, when I kind of talked about projecting media value and impressions, like all of those logos are tracked via AI. So AI gets trained whenever we get a new partner, it'll be trained in the system, and then anytime it's shown on the TV or social media, AI is what actually picks up that value. So it's huge for the partnership space because that's the way that we're able to project impressions and media value.
Last question, yeah.
Okay, so, like for example, if I'm a CEO of a pro sport franchise, I'm just curious about what kind of perks or culture that I should build a great business like the analytics team. Like what kind of like the perks or culture you will build for your team or any other great organization that you were in. Like they have a great atmosphere of the team, and how do they build the culture?
Anyone got a good answer for this?
That might be a Nick Gilman.
I guess I'm a little bit more tenured than everyone up here because I'm on my third different sports team. I would say each team had a different culture. You know, I would say that hire the right people, not only because they have the right skill set, but they also fit the company culture. For example, you know, we're 2 days in person a week, for example, right? Some people come in the 2 days because that's all they want to do. I live pretty close to the office. I go 3 to 4 times, right? I think for us, it's just, I think when you think about a culture of an organization, especially in sports, you want the people that work hard. My job description when I applied at the Lakers said 40 hours a week, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5:30. Tell you right now, it's not 9 to 5:30. There's games on Saturday and Sundays, and people ask questions of, hey, you know, how can we price our tickets on the Saturday game at 7 o'clock and like dynamically price it, right? We got to change those. We're not as sophisticated as Elevate is, so I'm kind of doing a lot of manual work. But, you know, that's just like someone like me. Like I could say no, I don't, you know, this isn't in my job description. I could easily say that. It might not come off as perfect as it would if people at the office is, but for me, it's like you want those hard workers that understand like you are here because you sign up for this and this is like a dream job. And there's 1,000 people right behind me that would do anything to have my job. I know that for sure. So for me, it's just like I work with a lot of people that think like that. And I think when our ownership or our VPs hire people that have that mindset, and I've interviewed a lot of people, you know, just in my roles, and I can see it like this. Like they'll show me a project that they worked on in school and they could talk about it all day. And I understand that like they had passion for that. And I can just instantly tell like this is going to be a hard worker or like their future is bright. Just off an initial conversation. So I think that's how you got to put your mindset is just like, sometimes you just gotta put your head down and work, and those are the people that, you know, will make that company great. And then if you aggregate that, I think that's a good company culture, is like everyone wants to be there and help, you know, that department or help the team win, or, you know, help the business grow, right? I think that's how you figure out a good company culture that way.
I'll add a little bit to that.
So the other part of it is there's two things. One, willingness to learn and willingness to be able to be taught something. Because you don't want somebody who has like a giant ego, thinks they know everything. But I think most people are willing to learn. Another thing is, who do you want to be up with at midnight working still? Like you woke up at 8 a.m., started working at 9, and now it's midnight and you're still working. Who do you want to be awake with? Because some people you don't want to be awake with. But if you're willing to be up with them at midnight, still working, that's when you know you got a good team member.
I can add. The thing I've observed about the work culture at NASCAR is that it has a great balance between flexibility, where you allow people to work as per their best ways of working, but also establishing certain non-negotiables. So you don't want to extend that level of flexibility. So like for me, I find that great because technically I'm working today and I had a lot of stuff to do in the first half of the day, but my manager knows that I'm going for a panel discussion at my school. So he said, okay, go ahead. And it's not like I have to take a day off for that, because he knows this is something that is beyond his non-negotiable. So that level of security is established, and then you can allow certain flexibility. So I look for things like that when I also interact with employers, when I'm approaching them in interviews. Those are the questions I want to ask as well, because I want to know what it's going to be like if I actually end up getting that position and working in that role, and just even if I were to be able to connect with other people who are at the organization. I make it a point that apart from my interview process, I'm doing this and just connecting with people and seeing what their work life is like.
One last thing to add to that. I would say just one piece of advice that I have in interviews for this question in particular is make sure to ask how they are contributing to their employees' growth. So when you're interviewing, say, you know, what are you doing, and give me an example. And make sure, love HR, but make sure you're not asking the HR people. Make sure you're asking your boss, because that's going to be the person that's advocating for you. So luckily, in both of my jobs in the past, you know, they were really big on sending us out to conferences and networking events. They wanted us to grow. And I even remember my old boss, he was like, I want to set these people up, my employees up, so that they can succeed in other roles. I'm not expecting my employees to stay here for their whole time, the rest of their lives. So make sure that you're asking your boss those kind of questions when you're interviewing, because I think those are really, really big answers that they should be giving.